share it to everybody. This is the IMG research group. The IMG research group focused on research, actually clinical research, but because many of us are applying for residency, and this is a very critical stage in our life, we've paused research for a while so that we can focus on trying to master the skills of getting into residency. One of them is an interview skill. And we have two, highly rated guests in our midst that will act as preceptors. Dr. AB is a pediatrician, an attending pediatrician, and Dr. Tobe is a resident. They volunteered to guide us, give us, do this interview like a mock interview and send in their correction. The two interviewees are Dr. Tom Elemi-Hiller is applying for internal medicine so that you can understand where he's going. His hospital, where he's applying to, is in an underserved community, not really a rural community, an underserved community in New York. Why Dr. Silva is also applying for internal medicine, I think so, right? Dr. Silva, right? Family medicine, okay. You're on mute, so throughout the time you can unmute yourself so that we don't just unmute yourself, Tom, so that we don't keep asking you to mute and unmute. Every other person, you can also mute yourself so that you don't disturb. Thank you so much. So I'll hand it over to Dr. AB to take up from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Edward. Tobe, how do you want to run this?
Dr. Tom, it's good to see you. Sorry, I haven't contacted you in a while. It's good to see everybody as well. Okay, so so we don't waste a lot of time. We'll take the first person who's ready to go, and we'll throw questions. I'm suggesting that we'll run the question sessions first before we run the comment sessions afterwards, something like that for each. So one after the other.
Okay, so we'll do, for example, we'll do Dr. Tom first, and then give his feedback before we do Dr. Ogochi. Okay. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm starting with Dr. Thomas. Okay. So nice to meet you. And thank you for applying to our program. This is your second interview session, right?
Yes, this is actually my second.
So I'm trying to act like the second guy you're meeting,
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Because you're gonna have like 5 people or something like that. So, yeah. So how has the day been going?
Oh, thank you for asking. It's been fun, actually. I've learned a lot about the program through my meeting with the residents and also my earlier interview and the welcome ceremony that we were giving earlier. I learned a lot about the program. So it's been a nice day. I've enjoyed every bit of my experience today.
Okay. I hope the day continues to go well. So tell me, why did you choose internal medicine?
Yes, internal medicine, actually, I came to fall in love with internal medicine first during the 4th year of my medical training. I had an unfortunate incident. I was admitted actually for a while for a case of pericarditis. And during my admission, stay in the hospital, I had a team of doctors that were attending to me, a team of internal medicine physicians. And I was just amazed at how much the wealth of knowledge they displayed, how they use basic science, that I have learned prior to that time to explain my pathology. So that was when my interest in internal medicine started. Over the course of my training, as I went through my clinical rotation, I came to appreciate internal medicine more. I love the fact that internal medicine, there is longitudinal care. You are able to have a patient that you take care of over a long period of time. I'm somebody that has benefited a lot from relationships. My family, I grew up in a large family. So I appreciate the importance of relationship. Just being able to keep up that relationship with my patients is something that I long for, and internal medicine will give that to me. Another thing that I love so much about internal medicine is the fact that there is diversity in subspecialty, a lot of diversity, subspecialty diversity in internal medicine. So there's so much to learn about. And I'm somebody that is always curious for knowledge. I want to learn new things. And I believe a residency training in internal medicine and eventually a profession as an internal medicine physician will not keep me bored, as I will have so many things to learn. So these are some of the reasons why I chose internal medicine as my specialty to apply to.
So that's good. That's nice. So
thank you.
Tell me, why the US? Why did you choose to come here to the US?
Yes, that's an interesting question. Actually, when early in my professional career after my medical school training, I had the opportunity of speaking to a few friends of mine who had few friends and senior colleagues of mine who had trained, who had left Nigeria to train in the US for residency. And they told me about the comprehensiveness of the residency training in the United States, apart from just the patient encounter, the clinical experience, that's the rich nature of the clinical experience. They also told me about the research aspect of it, that is incorporated into residency training. And that I just found fascinating. I wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to be able to have a training that is holistic, because I believe why having that clinical acumen or having a robust clinical experience is very important. Research is also what drives what we do every day. And just being able to have a training that encompasses both robust clinical training as well as exposure to research as a resident was something that I was yearning for. And that was actually the driving goal for me relocating to the US to pursue my residency training.
That's nice to hear. So why did you choose this program?
Oh yeah, I've actually followed your program now for a while. I first had the opportunity of attending your open house session September last year. And during that open house session, I learned a lot about your program. And since then, I have tried to follow up with your program and development at your program. One of the things that I was able to learn from that open house session that day from the program director and also from the faculty was the fact that the program runs having a direct mentorship program for its residents through open door policy. That is something that I love a lot because I'm a curious person. I love to ask questions. I love to learn under direct mentorship. I've gotten to the stage where I am today as a result of that. So just being able to have a program where the residents can walk up to their attendings to clarify their doubts if they had any, or just to be able to get responses to questions that they may have is something that I was looking forward to, and that's in your program. Another thing that I saw in your program that I actually loved a lot was I saw the level of scholarly activities and research that is ongoing in your program. And that is something that I want to also take part in. When I was going through your website, I saw that some of your residents have had the opportunity of presenting their research work at regional and national conferences, and that was really interesting to me. I even saw something, another thing that I saw that was very interesting to me was that some of your research, some of the research of your residents, we actually ranked like one of the top 3 research during the Capital Health Annual Research Day. And that at the period of standing to competitive, that is something that I will look forward to being able to achieve as a resident in your program. Other things that I love about your program is the fact that your program, during the open house, it was echoed, and I saw that a lot in your, on your website too, is that it's located in a culturally diverse area of New Jersey. And that is something that I want to be able to experience, because I know that with that, I will have a lot of exposure to cases that will be able to give me the necessary experience by the time I'm done with my residency training. Other things about your program that I also admire, apart from this, is I looked at the resident profile and I saw that some of those resident profiles, they actually fit the kind of profile that I also have. These are people that have actually been able to do one or two things in their home countries and have been involved in research. And now you are giving them this opportunity to train as resident doctors in the US. And I think having a resident profile that fits means that I might have a professional pathway that is compatible with your residency training. So those are some of the reasons I chose your program.
That's really nice. Looks like we have come to the program coordinator just signaled me that it's time to wrap up this session. It was nice meeting you, and I really do hope that we see you sometime soon.
Thank you.
Do have a wonderful day and enjoy the rest of your interview.
Thank you, Dr. Abby. I really appreciate your time and I enjoyed interviewing with you.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's review those questions and then I can ask him some questions. And okay, sorry, let's review those questions and then I can ask Dr. Ugochi some questions and then we'll swap. Something like that.
Okay. Okay. So, Dr. Thomas, really nice, really nice. Just remember your computer seems to be below. If this is how, you're going to, it looks like you're looking down on your computer a little bit. You might want to put maybe 1 or 2 books so that you can be at the level of your interview. I don't know what level my computer is, but that's one. Your background seems a little bit, it's clean, it's good, but I think it seems a little bit too, not close, but it's really, you want it plain, but you want it a little bit to have a little bit of some more space around. So are you using a webcam?
I'm using a webcam actually, and I'm trying to look into the webcam instead of, I'm using a webcam attached to the computer because, yes. So
okay, just try to work on the angle so that you're a little bit, we can, like if you look at Dr. Ogochi's background, even though it's not like it has many doors behind, it might not look like the perfect scenario, but it's okay. But you can see that her background is a little bit zoomed backward, so it doesn't look like you are so choked wherever you are. Okay. So I like the way you were talking. Your voice was fluctuating and you were audible. So the first question, why internal medicine? Sometimes here in the US, the words we use, it might be you were hospitalized, okay? So instead of using a word like admitted, you can just change it to hospitalized. And I want everybody to have, for every question or every popular question, have 3 points or however number of points and be able to just hit on those points. So for that question, I don't think you really did justice to it. I think you need to go back and kind of have, what are you trying to bring out from your hospitalization? The point wasn't really clear for me. And you talked about diversity of cases. In this case, you will use something like variety of cases. So when you're talking about human color or whatever, you can use diversity, but with cases, variety. So I think you need to have some straightforward points that you like to hit, but you just, expatiate. So my question is, what point were you trying to bring out from the hospitalization?
That's more like where my interest got triggered, my just being able to experience those.
So what did you see? What did they do differently?
Well, I saw the way they were able to, basically just their wealth of knowledge on what they were doing and how they were able to explain my medical condition, my pathology by then I imagined I had done some basic sciences and I just saw them being able to use those basic science to correlate and use it to explain my pathology as at that time. I just found that I thought that was like fascinating to me at that point.
Okay, so that can fall under the wealth of knowledge, the wealth of knowledge that you saw, amongst internal medicine physicians, the fact that, they could just try to bring out something, a point out of that, because you were hospitalized and I got lost somewhere. So, boss, you like research, oh, I swear. Okay, this is a research group. I'm sorry, I'm talking to the research people. So everything is research. Are you sure your program is big on research?
Well, they seem to be big on it on the website, even though it's not an academic program, right? Because I was trying to read through the profile of their residents and their attendees. And most of the attendees were actually residents here that were retained. And I saw a pattern. They say, oh, this person came from so place, let's say Nigeria. He finished medical school in Nigeria, did practice in Nigeria. He came to the US, worked in so capacity, maybe in clinical research
Just
and all
slow
that.
down on the research part, because
Okay.
you don't know how much they love research. Everybody does research. Even the most Akbangiri program would do. If they have people going in for fellowship, they will always find a way. My program wasn't Akbangiri, it was a university program, but they were not. The one guy in my class did 200 research. Some of us, they had to beg us, let my people go. So if you see some people like that, their profile, it might make you feel like, oh, the research is, so just tone down on your research with this program. So your why the US, I need you to get points as well for that. You didn't really have points why you chose the US. Your point was majorly research. You want to talk about the US system. The US, they like when you brag about them. The US residency system is one of the best, is the most organized, or one of the most organized residency systems in the world, or stuff like that. And you wanted to key into that, whatever. So my point is, you want to be able to have 1 or 2 points, because don't spend more than 1 minute on each question, but I want you to drive home your point. So why the US? You wanted better, maybe knowledge or residency training, and you can add research if you really, and you talk about how the medical system here advances, and you want to be part of that advancement and stuff like that. And then you can add research, but don't make research your number 1. You can just make it like, and the research that goes on in the US every time, or in the US residency system, brings about a lot of universal medical changes and all of that, okay? Then why this program? It was good that you attended their open house session. You have a lot, but I need you to be specific about what you heard in the open house session. You understand? It makes them believe more. So when you talk about, they have an open door system, it makes more sense if you say, for example, when Dr. Ismail, the program director, was talking, she talked about the open door system where residents had access to the faculty. I really like mentorship. So things like, so you want to make your grammar simple, but also, professional. So instead of things like ask questions, you say, I really, mentorship, because there's a thin line between them thinking you are someone that will keep knocking on the program director's door and asking questions every day, and someone who just needs a little bit of guidance. So if you use the right word, it kind of makes that differentiation for you. And then you talked about research again, the scholarly activity that they do, you want to be specific, like, oh, maybe I'm interested in, oncology research. And I see that most of the residents, and during that session, Dr. So and so talked about how much research he has done in this field, blah, 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 specific, something that they can actually remember in their head and say, oh, he said this. You talked about diversity, which is good. And then you talked about residency profile. You can actually use that residency profile to boost your, or rather make them feel like you see yourself there. Like, oh, when I looked at the residency profile of the residents, you know, they were involved in similar, you know, their background and their interest, you know, were in synchrony with I loved, you know, in synchrony with mine, and it makes me feel like I will fit into this program. Like, this is where I want to be, you know, that just, you are using it to your advantage. Like, you're using it to sell yourself that, hey, the residents you have here are people I like and I would like to be, you know, like them. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dr.
And also you need to, your face, smile small, you know, fluctuate it. It's not a do or die affair.
Okay.
That's the first thing you should just put in your mind, you know. Okay. Let's shine your teeth small, then relax and stuff like that. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's where I was going to start my own contributions from. Your affect was kind of, you know, it was straight line affect. You know, you want to smile, you want to laugh, you want to, you know, a bit of all of those facial expressions that help engage the person that is listening to you. You know, it's really, really important. And then the length of the responses you gave for each of the questions, I thought it was a bit too long, a bit too wordy, because you were trying to explain what you were trying to say. So, you know, you threw in, you know, a lot of words. Okay, with that being said, I noted a few things. So something I think I've observed is that, this is my own observation and I may be wrong, but I feel like sometimes when these people are asking us these questions, they're trying to see if, I mean, they've looked through our profile, yes, but they also want to see if our strengths, if we can fit into their program, right? That's the essence of the interview, right? But they want to hear you and see if you can demonstrate that, right? So sometimes when they ask why this program, I feel like that's a great opportunity to fuse your strengths, you know, with what you think is related to the program. For example, you started off saying something about research, you know, so if you think, like Dr. AB said, research is a matter of interest, no matter how big the program is on research. Yes, they encourage their residents to do research, but it's a matter of interest. If I'm interested, I will have 200 publications. If I'm not interested, I will have one publication that I was compelled to do. So it may not really, what is posted online may not be a reflection of what is really going on in-house, you know, but if you think that it's a point for you to put out there based off on, you know, the research you've done about the program, then you want to tie your own strengths to the strength of the program. You know, one Sunny Downstate, when I was interviewing with Sunny Downstate, I told them that I had a research background in oncology, you know, and I'm hoping that I'll continue that research experience here at Sunny Downstate. So, because I already knew that Sunny Downstate had like this slogan, that big cancer institute that was like one of the best in the world. So it was easy for me to bring my strengths and fuse it into that. So if you think that's, you can do that here, then please do it. It will be good for them to know that, okay, this person has research interest. He even has a research background. They would have seen it in your CV, but you know, now you have an opportunity to say it. So I, you know, have a research background. I love research, and I'm hoping that I can also be a part of, you know, the research activities going on here at the hospital. So that, you know, is a strength. And then you talked about the variety of cases that you hope to see when you come into the program. You can also tie in your strengths. You know, if in your CV you've spoken about having some clinical experience, then you can say that, I want to continue in that light, so to speak. There's a way you can fuse your strengths and your exposure to a variety of patients to what you will meet when you get to the environment. Because for example, my program attracts a lot of people who kind of have been in environments where they've seen the kind of patients we see here in the Bronx, something like that. So it kind of gives me an idea that, okay, they want to hear you say that. Well, I mean, they would love to hear that you can fit in, you can see that diversity of patients. Because when we talk about variety of patients, we're not just talking about the medical conditions themselves, pericarditis, TB and all that. We're also talking about the social, psychosocial issues, the, cultural differences. The kind of patients we see in the Bronx is obviously different from the patients you will see in Texas or even in Manhattan, something like that. Then your question number one, why internal medicine? So it was too wordy, so we got lost in between. But I think you have a great point. And I think there's a way you can portray it and it will make a lot of sense. So what I wrote down was my own narrative. I just wrote something briefly and I said, that's your own story, but I just wrote, in my 4th year of my medical training, I was admitted to the medicine floor where I was managed for acute pericarditis. And there, I saw these physicians come in and go and, attending to my concerns. And I loved how they related with me. As a matter of fact, we discussed about my interests and how I'd love to continue in that field. And, from there, I started thinking much more about internal medicine. So you see, it's a few words, but you have hit the point. Medicine floor, you were admitted, you were, hospitalized, as Dr. Ebi said, you were hospitalized in the medicine floor for acute pericarditis, and you had these medicine physicians coming in and out to see you. And you loved how they engaged in the conversations about, what was going on. So few words, you hit the point. Then there's one other thing I want to talk about. Because, especially if you're interviewing with, Caucasians, because sometimes, the way we understand ourselves is obviously very different. So something that I may advise to do is, how you start off a write-up and you say introduction, and then you go into that write-up. You can actually do that, put the introduction. The introduction is the variety of patients you see here is what I would love to be a part of. That's the introduction. And then you talk about how the experiences you've had, just 1 or 2 sentences, or your strengths and how it fuses into that label, right? Or you can talk about your experiences you've had and then put the label at the end. So because I've been able to do this and this, I'd love to be a part of this institution where I can see this variety of patients as well, So the guy gets, like, even though he doesn't hear the explanations you give or the narrative, he knows the label. Okay, this person is variety of patients, research, all those labels help out. I think that's pretty much. Then resident profile. I'm not sure if that point was big for me in the way you presented it, right? Rather than do that, you can split out the points. If you want to highlight 3 points, research this and this, then put those 3 separate headings and fuse your own. I mean, you've done your homework, right? These residents in that hospital have this profile that look a lot like your own. So if you are telling it to the attending who is listening to you, he knows that, okay, this guy can fit in because the people we have here sound a lot like what he's coming with. So let that be rather than telling him your resident profile looks like my own, no. Tell him what your own profile is that makes you a good fit for that program. I've done research and I know that your program does research because I've seen your residents do research. I'd love to be a part of that, you see? So your research looks like the residents' research. That is a good thing in the program. I've had clinical experience. If that is big, I'm just throwing that in. I've done this and I've seen that your residents come from diverse backgrounds where they've also seen diverse patients, and I'd love to be a part of that, something like that. Okay, said a lot, but I think
Thank you
Yeah,
so
so
much.
the last one I was going to, what you said, instead of saying residency profile, the right phrase would be diversity of, you know, the diversity of residents you have, residents coming from all over the world. You feel like you're going to, have a lot of cultural diversity, interact with more people, and you will feel at home and stuff like that. Okay, so
Good.
summary of it
Thank
all,
you.
just have your points. And don't have too many, don't let it be too wordy, and you should be fine.
sorry, one more thing, Dr. Tom. So the point about the affect, I think it's really, really very, for me, it's very big. You want to engage your listener. So you want to, everything you can do to, you want to smile. I was admitted in the, that expression kind of brings the person in, you pause, you demonstrate, keep it simple though, but that engagement really, so that even if he's tired of listening to you, he still feels engaged, the way you're going back and forth and the way you are pausing to smile to, it's a Q&A session, quite all right, but don't make it a Q&A session if you can, like question, answer. Yes, that's what it is, but try to make it like a conversation, like, okay, oh yeah, let's relate on a ground.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And for everybody, I say this, half of this thing is acting. Let's just get it straight. You don't have, like, it's not come and be yourself. It's acting. Fake smile, but let it not look fake. That's why you should be a good actor. And I'm sorry to say, sometimes you have to put some stories that you can relate to, I'm sorry, but true or untrue or garnished, it's all packaging. So just keep that in mind, that you must not have a personal, an experience of someone. You can just put some small spices and it's your own. Nobody will go and check that you went to a bar to do something or something like that. So just make sure you act it well and you keep them engaged.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Ogochi, Tobe.
Okay, hello, Dr. Ogochi. Welcome to our hospital. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Okay, so let's get to meet you. Tell us about you.
Okay, thank you for asking me, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's such an honor to be here. I grew up in a small town in Nigeria with 3 siblings. The oldest, my sister studied law, while my 2 brothers studied engineering. My dad retired from the insurance industry while my mom raised us at home. I decided to make a move to the United States after practicing for about 2 years in tropical medicine and primary care. And presently, I'm doing a family medicine rotation. And aside of medicine, I enjoy watching my daughter play soccer on the weekends. And I also like to host dinner and have people around and serve Nigerian cuisines. And if time permits me, I like to watch Netflix movies. And yeah, I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, nice. So you've always had an interest in family medicine, I believe.
Yes, I
Tell us
have.
about it.
Well, it started when I did my internship at a family residency hospital in Nigeria. And that experience really shaped my outlook on family medicine. And when I moved to the United States, I engaged in several clinical rotations. And for me, primary care has always been my passion and stood out for me. And I also like to work with patients of all age groups. I also like to not want to limit myself to one practice or field. So, and also like to encourage my patients to live a healthier lifestyle through encouragement and education, which is what family medicine will provide for me.
Okay. So why this hospital?
During my research, I was very impressed with the commitment to the education for the residents. I also like the fact that they have a mentorship structure for the residents to guide them in residency. I'm also very local to the area, so I'm very familiar with the patient population, having been that I've done lots of rotation around the area. And I'm also very close to my family that will provide supportive help during my training at your program. And yeah, that's basically one of the things that's brought me to your program.
Okay. Is there something you would like to ask me about the program? We can talk about it.
I mean, okay, I have a question. Do you expect to see any major changes at your program?
Well, I just threw that in so that you know, just be aware that just prepare one question that you will ask them, because sometimes they want to get you to.
I'm hoping, like, during the presentation, I'll get to find a question to ask them.
Something to ask. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so tell us about a case you've managed.
I didn't prepare for that question, but hey.
Okay.
You must have that case. Just go on, even if you forge it, go and have that.
I'll forge something right now, so everyone stays. As we're here, you can come up with something.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, right? Okay, tell us about a difficult situation that you've been in and you've dealt with.
Difficult situation. I would say it was during one of my rotations in Philadelphia. We had a patient that we just had delivered her baby, and she was not willing to let us give the baby any injections because she doesn't trust any injections that we're going to give to her at the hospital. So what I did was to talk to her, ask her what reason she had behind her decisions. And she explained to me that she had had bad experience in the past and she didn't want to have any of the repeats. So I told her that, well, the doctors here are experts in the field, and whatever drugs that were giving her were tested and were sure that this will not repeat itself. And she was a bit comfortable with what I told her, but she still wanted to she wanted me to give her some time to think about it. And what I did was to give her information on what she can read on to, inform herself of everything she was trying to. That's basically what I did to her. I did for her.
Okay. So what are your long-term, what are you looking to get out of the program moving forward?
I see myself hopefully being an attending, completing my residency, being an attending, and then working in the healthcare industry, hopefully being a help stylist or open my own private practice in the future, either ways.
Okay. Just maybe you have some other questions you want to add?
No, I think we should give feedback on this ones.
Okay.
You want to go first, Toby?
Okay, all right. So I'll just start with the question we missed. Tell us about a case you've managed. I mean, I got that question, so I kind of ask it all the time. Something I tried to do that, just like a suggestion. I mean, we're in COVID, right? COVID-19, that's like the biggest thing for most of the hospitals right now. Everybody's overwhelmed with, caring for COVID-related cases, amongst other things going on. So what I tried to do was to talk about a case I had, man, this is my own story. And, just because you don't have anything, that's why you don't have anything like right now, but I mean, I know it can take some time to think about something. So I tried to narrate something. It was a question I had prepared for, but when I was saying it, I kind of just, blanked out. So I just quickly cooked up something, narrated this thing. And then I ended up by saying that keeping a high index of suspicion was something I learned from that instance, because I mean, considering that we're in COVID right now, it's something everybody wants to be, is a skill that we all want to have at the back of our, have handy, being able to have high index of suspicions when you're practicing in an area where there's an epidemic or a pandemic. The story I narrated was something related to a pandemic, an epidemic, something like that though, but I tried to tie it in because that was like the moral for me. And that was like what I felt like I could sell to the person who was listening to me. Because I mean, the case was not like the most interesting or the most fantastic thing. It was just me being able to tell him that, hey, during COVID and when I'm in your hospital, even for chest pain, I would think COVID, I will be able to have that high index of suspicion, something like that. So if that is useful to you, then okay. All right. Then why this hospital? You said something about being local to the area, but you said that like it's your second or third point or something like that. For me, I think that should be your first point. That's my thought process, and it's just me. When I interviewed in Baltimore, one hospital in Baltimore, it was close to my house. The program director actually literally started calling me my Baltimore friend within that 30-minute session of that interview. She was like, you live here, you're like 30 minutes away. I'm like, yes, ma'am, I live here. I'm very close to the hospital. She was like, oh, my Baltimore friend, something like that. So if you're local to the area, don't just say I'm local to the area. Dwell on that point. I'm 20 minutes away. I live in Rochester Island, which is like 20 minutes from this place. I go on the bus ride, and every time I drive past the hospital, I go on Z8. Sound like you can relate to the attending who possibly even rides on the bus to work or drives through that road. Like he feels like, okay, this person knows this place well enough. If you did your rotations anywhere around, I did my rotation in Queen's Hospital, which is like 20 minutes away from this hospital, blah, 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 something like that. Relate very well, put in those geographical landmarks that demonstrate that you're not just local to the area, but you're actually here. My family lives 5 minutes away, which they live in, Brookville, which is 5 minutes away from the hospital. So, I can always, when I close from work very late, I can always stop by at the house, and pass the night there, so I can come back to work the next morning. It gives them a sense that, okay, you are all set up for, what is coming ahead. Then let's get to meet you. Is, tell me about yourself. I think you did a good job. But you kind of glossed through what I felt was the strength in that conversation, which is some things I don't know if you're okay. Your rotations, your family medicine experience, your practice experience. There's some things you said at the end that I felt were like, okay, that's the big part of that conversation. So you start off with your family and all that. When you get to that point, my thought process again, when you get to that point, don't rush through it because it's your strength. I came to the US and, I started off a family medicine rotation at so hospital. I was there for 3 months. Just 1 or 2 lines, but you've spent a little few extra seconds and you've highlighted that point to that person listening to you, and then you move on. And I subsequently moved to this, and I was there too. All of that clinical exposure, further strengthened my interest, and I really wanted to continue family, so something like that.
Okay.
Interest in family medicine is why family medicine. So that was also, I liked your response, but it was kind of a lot of words. You want to, again, different people have different styles, but if you want to give like points, I know you tried to put some points. You talked about, there were some things you said though that were like points, but you want to really spell them out so that I understand that, okay, this is why family medicine. That's pretty much, but I think it was engaging. Don't rush through your points. Try to engage the audience. And then don't freak out on the most random question that you will get, like the case you're about to make. If you don't even come up, there was an interview, one of the interviews I had, I said something very random and the women were laughing, but I mean, that was the best I could do at the time. Like, you just have to say something. Let it be the word, and the lady said, oh, that's not the answer to the instance you've given is not an appropriate response. I was like, okay, I'm sorry about it, but that's kind of how I thought about the question, so. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the way to when you don't have an immediate answer or you're confused about a question, it's okay to ask the interviewer, do you mean this, or something like that. So starting from top to bottom, your story. You start with thank you for asking. You necessarily don't have to say thank you. If you want to, it's fine, but the thank you part you can skip. Secondly, you talked about your family background, but I didn't get the message you were trying to pass with your family background, really. Like you just talked about it. So for every time you open your mouth during an interview, you're trying to sell yourself. That's your number one aim. So if you're talking about your family background, you have to draw up a unique, for example, when I talk about my family background, I'm like, I grew up in a very large family of 10 people, or, and in that family, there were a couple of things I learned, like patience, or being the last child of how many children, I learned patience, I learned team spirit or teamwork, and I learned, you are bringing out a message from that. So you talked about your siblings being lawyers and all of that. So my question is, what point are you raising out of that? You don't just want to say something and it makes no additional meaning to what you're trying to say. If you're trying to say you came from a family of people who are really majorly arts, inclined, and you are the one who became the science girl, and growing up trying to do something different from every other person, really built my determination. That's something you're bringing out. And then your facial expression, maybe it's evening, everybody's tired, so maybe that's it. But I need you to have the same thing we talked about for Tom, the fluctuation. You want your face to really be bright. And you talked about your daughter playing soccer. That should have been an exciting moment for you, and you should have smiled about that. And even talked about, especially watching her, score goals or like, or something that makes them laugh. It's okay to chip in one or two. And on the weekends, I really enjoy watching my daughter play soccer. Kids soccer is so, it could be funny at times, and it's really one of the fun things I like to do. You say something like that, they can relate if they have kids. And sometimes the conversation goes from there, like, oh, my son plays football and he's a mess, something like that. And you guys can kick off from there. And then family medicine, Toby talked about, you want to be fast. I liked the way your responses were fast, but you also want to make your points clear. So you talked about how your internship training in Nigeria influenced you in family medicine. I didn't get what part of it influenced your interest in family medicine. Like what happened that made you like family medicine? And then, so you just want to be very clear about your points and have, it mustn't be stories, but just have clear instances so that they know that you are not just saying stuff.
Okay.
Okay. So like, oh, when I went to Nigeria for my internship, I realized the importance of family medicine, because 90% of the illnesses are common illnesses, or illnesses that cost a lot of lives or whatever, are illnesses that could have been, talked about, could have been resolved in the office. And I really, got to get exposure to those variety of illnesses. And I really enjoyed the fact that family medicine physicians, did a lot, blah, 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 whatever. Why this hospital? You talked about mentorship. Every hospital has mentorship. So what's specific about this hospital's mentorship? Okay, so there are some universal points for why this hospital. Things like if they're in a very diverse if they have a diverse population, you talk about it, that the fact that, there's diversity of illnesses, blah, blah, blah. If there's mentorship, if they have a very strong mentorship program that is different from what you usually will know, you can say it, but it shouldn't be one of your major points. You want to come up with other specific points about that hospital. Local to the area. Toby talked about that. You want to really go all out there. And like I said, every time you open your mouth, you're trying to sell yourself. So I did rotations at Brookdale, Bobo Michel Hospital, blah, blah, blah. And what that did for me was that I got familiar with, cases and the people, the patient population around. And I think that's going to be very helpful for me, when I start residency, or if I get into this program. So you're able to tie it in like that, Then case you have managed, you have to come up with a story by yourself that you can actually relate to. But also remember that your story shouldn't just be for the sake of telling a story. It should highlight something about you, either team spirit, leadership skills, or your clinical skills, or your hard work or something like that. Sorry? Oh, okay. So make sure that every time that you say something, you are dropping a bomb. That's the point. So difficult situation. You talked about injection. I know what you're saying. The mom probably refused everything. So just summarize it to immunization. Okay, it makes the story much more, and that's something I see every day as a hospitalist. So you can just say, so one difficult situation was, and what you have to make sure it's unique. People deny immunization every day. Okay, so it has to be maybe a mom whose child had maybe they go to Africa every time, for example, and they're exposed to a lot of endemic illnesses there. And here she is trying to deny her child immunization. So that makes it more difficult. I'm trying to say, find something that, because immunization, they deny immunization every time. And what makes your story more real is that it's not always successful that you convince them, okay? But at the end of the day, you'll be able to say, even though she was, adamant, and she still refused to give her child immunization, but we kept a cordial relationship with her, and, she did not feel like we were forcing it down her throat, and she actually talked about her doing it in future. It makes it more real than if you were to say a story whereby after everything she agreed.
Okay.
It doesn't work that way. People that don't want to take immunization, if you like, waste your saliva from now till Jesus comes, they won't take. Okay, or you can say she opted to take hepatitis B vaccine or whatever and declined, the other erythromycin, or she opted to take the erythromycin and declined hepatitis B vaccine. But for me, that was what I learned from that situation is that sometimes as doctors, we have to come to a compromise with our patients. It might not be an ideal situation, but we are able to achieve, we as doctors, we should be able to count little successes like that, even though she did not end up taking the hepatitis B vaccine, but at least she protected her child's eyes, and something like that just makes it. So what do you want to get out of the program? Everybody's going to complete residency and become an attending, except you go there and do something extremely, forgive my language, stupid. Okay. So to me, that's really not, they expect everybody to graduate. So for me, you should just be specific about what do you want to get out of the program. That question is a little bit dicey. It's not talking about your future goals, but what do you think this program can offer you? Okay, so like after my training, I believe that this program, because of the teaching staff or whatever, or the diversity of patients, I know that I'll be well equipped to be able to see patients with a variety of illnesses in different clinical settings, you know, or in different locations, blah, blah, blah. You're telling them that by the time they are done with you, what will you be able to do? Okay, so that's what that question really is. And I believe that after this, I'll be a very good hospitalist or whatever, because you know you have a very good hospital medicine program, and with the variety of cases that I believe that I'm going to see here, I think I'll be able to stand on my own and be able to manage patients from blah, blah, blah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. AB.
And the other applicants, if you have anything to add or any questions to ask, after we have finished talking, you can always ask your questions.
Can we ask now?
Yes, please.
So that tell me about yourself question is a question that I personally struggle with. I wouldn't say struggle with at this point. I'm trying to find the best fit to keep myself within time. So because my year of graduation is long, so I'm trying to see how to fit in all those things I've done. So what is your best approach? I want to give it a try and see.
Sure.
I know I'm not part of the interviewee panel, but I just want to like give it a try and see, you know, how, I don't know, how it's going to fit.
It makes it interesting if we have random people, you know, in between, you know, give a shot at a question and stuff like that. So go ahead, Dr. Edward.
Okay, let me add myself to the spotlight so that I can see. I'm somewhere too busy, but I hope it comes out well. Okay. I mean, are you going to ask me the question, or I'm going to just...
Oh, okay. So nice to meet you, Dr. How do you pronounce your name?
Okobi is my last name. That's
Okobi.
Yeah.
That's such a wonderful name. They can
Thank
lie.
you.
So that's how they tell me my long name is wonderful.
My lights don't spoil.
Huh?
My light is bad. I just broke it.
Sorry. Okay. So nice to meet you, Dr. Okobi. So tell me about yourself. I've seen your CV. It's been a long journey. So tell me.
Thank you so much for this question. Growing up in a beautiful scenery, little village. Oh, before that, let me just give you the background so you can understand. I'm applying for family medicine. It's a rural family medicine program. So let me just start again. Okay, I grew up in a rural, beautiful setting. I never knew what a doctor was, because we didn't have anyone close by. Growing up as a young child, I grew up under my grandma, who is a traditional healer. She was a very compassionate person, so she taught me compassion and care. All I wanted to be was a healer, but my parents, unfortunately, were educated. They needed us to be educated. So the closest next thing to being a healer was medicine. So that was how I found medicine as my new home. So I joined into medicine, where I studied and learned various many things. After med school, I did my postgraduate training, and part of my postgraduate training in obstetrics. And I was privileged to work in various settings in Nigeria as a physician, rural setting, where I enjoy the joy of delivering babies and mothers. But for every typical rural setting, I noticed that I was the only person, so I had to provide primary care, not just obstetric care, but primary care to those people in that area. As at that time where I was providing those primary care, it dawned on me that there was a relationship between, I noticed that the women that were having other complication or lost to follow up in obstetrics were having other socioeconomic issues that were preventing them. So I championed an initiative that they will bring all their family for WellCare Clinic. I'm a very creative person. So I championed an initiative and we had tremendous results. That was a pivoting point to my love for family medicine. When I saw the result we achieved by those preventive care and those wellness clinics that we introduced into our obstetric practice, it was a pivoting point. So as at that time, I had a quote that, that relieved my essence of being a healer. And that quote was to cure sometimes, to relieve often, and to comfort always. And I chose that as my creed, pushing me forward. Because I want to advance my knowledge in medicine, I decided to, in medicine, not just in medicine, in family practice, I decided to come to the US at the peak of my career after many years of primary care practice, hoping to continue my search for family medicine training and live that creed that has always been my burning desire to cure sometimes, to relieve often, to provide comfort care. Right now, I'm currently doing an externship rotation in rural family medicine. In keeping with my love for rural medicine, I'm exploring currently with the residents lifestyle medicine and how to prevent diseases in the community by various quality improvement projects that we've done. I see myself as a formidable member of a team that can contribute. So working together with these awesome residents has been great for me. In the future, I want to do primary care, basically, serving the underserved community, exploring lifestyle medicine, and infusing it with my previous experience with obstetrics. Outside medicine, I love nature. I love swimming. I take my family to the river and we swim or hang out, taking photos of nature, flowers, and scenery. In a nutshell, I'm very interested in your program because your program mimics all I have seen, and it's a program that might give me the clear path to where I want to go. Being a rural medicine family medicine program that is focused on lifestyle medicine, I believe that I will leave that my creed to cure sometimes, to relieve in the other times, and to provide comfort at all times. Thank you.
Dr. Edward, you finished the interview in one sitting. I will not lie to you, it was long, but I did not get lost. Your stories were, whoever is interviewing you will remember you, okay? But you want to make sure that you don't cover their remembrance with the other stories behind. So where I think you should have stopped would have been somewhere around the success you had with that initiative, or you should have just added, currently I'm doing an externship, in a family medicine program, a rural family medicine program, and outside of medicine. So you need to cut out some of those stuff. So you have a lot of stuff to put, and I would give you 2 minutes or something to be able to say all that. But your story was good. And then your creed, you can say your creed one time and let them ask you again, like, so what was that thing you said? And you're able to, so you can say it one time. If they remember, fine, but they'll be trying to remember on their way, what you said. So keep it shorter, but your story was engaging, and that's the kind of story we want to hear when you talk. Dr. Tobe, flog your smile.
No, yeah, too long. You were right, too long. I think it was too long, but it was engaging. However, you can actually, so I grew up with my grandmom, who had a deep love for healthcare. I know she would always tell me that she loved that these people cured when they could, cared for when they couldn't, comforted when they, that creed comes in there. And she said those words very often. It became a creed for me. My parents got me into medical school subsequently, and I went through the medical training. So you see, that first paragraph of your grandmom, everything enters one sentence. The second sentence is medical school. You said, unfortunately, my parents were educated. You don't want to say, unfortunately, your parents were educated. My grandmom always taught me, I grew with her, she loved healthcare a lot. She couldn't be a doctor. She used to say she always wanted to be, but she couldn't be. But she would always say that she loved how your creed comes in, and it became a creed for me. My parents, who were educated, got me into medical school, and I went to medical school. After medical school, so 1, 2, 3 blocks. First block is, growing up. Second block is medical school. Third block is, and when I started working, I did this and that initiative. And, I saw how it helped, the whole, family care idea came up, and that initiative comes up in that third block, right? I moved to the US to pursue I moved to the US where I did a couple of externships. I am currently doing one in fourth block. And then fifth block, you may not necessarily, if you want to, and I think that's a good place to end, that fourth block of, I'm currently doing one day here where I'm working with the residents. I love how you brought in that I'm working with the residents, and we're working on quality improvement projects for families and all that. And then you can end with, what you said about coming into the program and how it will help you, in your dreams, so to speak. So yeah, just sentence. So like AB said, so we don't get lost in the background narrative, but you have very, very key pointers that can all be discussed in blocks. And those blocks are like 1 or 2 sentences. My grandmom, who really didn't go to school, but she really loved healthcare. I grew with her, and she would always tell me that she loved that healthcare providers did this, and this. It became a creed for me because she said it very often. And, I kept reciting those words to myself. Many years after, my parents got me into medical school, and, and for Dr. Ogochi, there's something that's in Dr. Eddie's narrative that I think you should also, take into consideration. According to what I heard, family medicine folks are becoming more kind of strict because they feel like it's a backup for, so they are raising their bars, right? So they want to hear that you've always had this family medicine team from like, God knows way back, right? And you do have that kind of thing. So don't get it lost in your narrative.
Okay.
Buttress it from as early as you can, especially when you hear that question, tell me about yourself, bring it in so that they know that it wasn't just, okay, when you got to the US, started thinking family medicine. No, you put those keywords in my 40 or something that reflects when I was like in my cradle days or days of formation, and how that's, desire has grown over the years, something like that. So yeah, Dr. Eddie, I think it was great. Put it in blocks, and those sentences in blocks, and you hit the point in short time, in 1 minute, 1 minute.
Can I ask you that? Can I say something, please?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Is it possible?
Speaking, please.
Can I ask you, so is it necessary to really insert that my parents got me in?
Yeah, I was thinking about that part too. I was just going to go ahead and say, so years later, this inspired me to get into medicine, seeing all the good things my grandmother did. I wanted to follow that path or something, so you don't need to talk about your parents getting you into medical school.
I mean, that just came up. It was these things have to be reviewed and recited over, and you keep fine-tuning them until you get that just came off the top of my head. But yes, you don't have to say that. You're absolutely right.
Thank you, Zoe.
Welcome. And then the second thing that I wanted to say is, I think it was yesterday. No, a few days ago. One of the people that spoke indicated that if you, I think also one of the review sections, they were just saying that if you get cut off with a question you don't know, you guys suggested alternatives. Also, you can just say something like, "Oh, Dr. this, Dr. Edwards, you just hit me with a harder one. Please give me a moment to recollect and think about it," rather than just blunt out an answer. And while you're saying that, you can crack a joke and then come back and answer if you did. And if you don't know, you don't know. They were saying to be honest about it. So that was one of the suggestions.
Yeah, that's true. I remember one of my interviews, they asked me a question and I was like, can you give me a second, please? And they did give me a second and I came up with something. Even though it was still cock and bull. But you can ask for that extra time. That's a good point.
There's something I want to say about that. That the thing is, if you, I mean, these interviews are very, I don't know, frightening. For me, give me another 20 minutes, I won't come in that setup because I'm anxious, I'm nervous. So if it works for you that you get some extra time and you're able to put your thought process together, for me, even worsens the scenario. I get more tensed and I feel like I'm burning time and I'm not coming up with anything. So, I mean, you know yourself and what works best for you. What I would say is, don't leave any question unanswered. This is my own thought process, and I'm not an authority in this, but it's just the way I'm thinking about it. You have 5 questions to make a difference. There are like 1,001 other people who are going to be interviewing for that position. Like I would always say, for residency, put your best foot out there. Nobody knows what the true story is and what a cooked up story is. Nobody really knows those things except for you. You don't want to blot out nonsense, but at the same time, you don't want to miss out on an opportunity to make a difference, because frankly, you and I don't know what will make the difference. You and I do not know what the listener is listening to, what will ring the bell for him, right? So just know yourself and know what works best. But I would not leave any questions unanswered. I will not. I would make an attempt to say something, no matter how easy it is, and then see how it goes from there.
Since can I say something? Since we're in the open session, so there's an approach that I learned over my period of interviewing in other positions apart from residency. I don't know if it's applicable, but I think it's applicable. It's called the STAR approach. I know many of us must have heard of that. So many questions fall under this STAR approach. S is for the situation. You name the situation and you briefly explain in 1 or 2 statements. So you name it first, or difficult moments in your life, or the favorite actor you name that you met or you wish to meet, you name it. Then you briefly explain, just like 1 statement. Then the task. What were you supposed to do? What is the task before you? How do you want to do it? How do you want, let's say there's a difficult time that you met a resident, and how did you resolve it? So one of the difficult times was when a resident refused to come to work or something like that. The task I was supposed to do this, A, B, C, D, or we're supposed to do this, the action that you take to mitigate the problem. And I did this, I approached the resident, and try to understand his point of view, why he had a misunderstanding with me, and he clarified, and we also that it was a communication gap. The resolution, eventually we decided that we'll be communicating to ourselves with text. We have regular meetings so we can clear up our misunderstandings, send emails and respond to our emails, and that improved our patient care. So I've dealt with situation, task, action, resolution in less than 2 minutes. Now you can formulate any story to fall under this. Almost all the stories that are going to act in an interview falls under this, if you understand this. So just read it up. It's on YouTube, the STAR system. You can Google it up. So in case you're asked, or you are caught up anywhere, tell me the last time you saw something interesting in the society and you don't have anything, you just quickly use the STAR approach and just create something to be perfect. That's my suggestion. There are a lot of, the STAR method is explained in YouTube. You can open it up this night and just listen to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kobe. Do we have any other, is there anybody that wants us to treat a question or has a question? Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead. I don't know.
Yes, I have a question. So when you have resident summit, what do you ask them? Because I know, Dr. you've gone through residency and Dr. Tobe is in residency. So if we're having a resident summit, for example, like I will have a resident summit before my, what do residents want to hear?
That's one of the most, especially with this virtual thing, is one of the most annoying things. And depends on how the program organizes it. So you really just want to make them feel like, you're interested in them, their lifestyle and stuff like that. Try as much as possible not to ask questions from that they have already treated, So have a couple of questions. One question is, where do residents live? Do residents buy houses or rent? What are the interesting things to do around? What do residents do around? What are some of the best restaurants around, or or what do they look forward to in the town? Call schedule question. There's a way you ask it that it looks like you're dodging from work versus you just want to know, But if you're unclear about any of it, especially because it's family medicine, if you're unclear about, their rotations, you can always ask. And then you can ask about, how many clinic days on an average do you have, in a week or something like that. Then, what else? You never have to ask about salary. That one is way out, it's off. You can get that from the internet. What else? If there's anything interesting, if you find someone in the residency program that has the same interest as you, you can chat more about the thing. Maybe someone is an Arsenal fan or something, and you're an Arsenal fan, you guys can go from there. And then you can ask them strengths about the program. Things like that. Before you finish exhausting this one, but it's just that there are other people there as well. And there are some that they have questions that like 201 questions, but just try to make sure you participate, It could just be laughing and just re-asking what they said. Are you serious? Are you serious? That something like that. But always just make sure that you are involved.
I think it depends.
Thank you.
Yes, please go on.
No, say thank you.
So I attended a lot of webinars where it was mostly UT, and a lot of the residents spoke. And one question, it seemed to be consistent. Like they seem to have asked this question multiple times. Essentially, so like, how's the transition and schedule from PGY1 to PGY2? That can be something you can possibly ask. It's just one of the notes I took.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Really.
Or how has COVID affected, your residency training? So far, what rotations have changed? What has really changed with the whole COVID thing? And then if they tell you, you can now say, do you see the system going back to what it was? Or do you think it's, something that, or how has been the COVID experience with you guys and stuff like that?
Thank you.
Something to take note of, when we go for residents forum is which residents are there. You want to, if possible, take notes. If they introduce themselves that way, you can say, my name is Toby, I'm the chief resident. Chief residents, yes, those ones really matter. My name is Tobe. I'm a third-year resident. Yes, third-year resident. So the point I'm trying to make is you want to keep an eye for those that can influence the interview process. Those that can, I mean, you'd really never know who can influence or not. So put your A game out there, yes, but you want to keep an eye for chief residents, those kind of names, because okay, man, I need to at least say something in this scenario, Then another thing you want to keep an eye for is somebody you can relate to or relate with after the interview. So because sometimes we quickly forget, like we don't even remember the people's names you met. So if you want to write to them, John, Peter, I want to send this guy a LinkedIn message or whatever when I'm done with the interview, that's maybe something to do. Then the people who interviewed you, like the attendings, like it's also easy to not just remember their names when you are done, but if you can, just write down their names somewhere, because when you're sending follow-up messages, if you have the person's email, you want to send specific email. So some of those details are important. Like AB said, know how much, you don't want to ask how much they're getting paid. And then you don't want to ask, I would not ask what are the weaknesses of your program. I wouldn't ask that. I'm not sure if that's a great question to ask. But otherwise.
Don't ask that one. Don't ask that one. Another thing again is when you're for both your day before interview and the interview day, people that you really want to send messages to or send thank you cards to, right? You want to write down specific things you remember about them. Maybe Dr. Thomas, for example, was one of the residents, and you guys talked about Arsenal, After you have talked about all of the other stuff, if you want to send him a thank you email, you can now add stuff like, was really nice meeting you over, the residency forum yesterday. And it's really interesting that we share, we have interest in the same club. Hopefully in the future, we get to watch matches. Like, you don't want to be too familiar, but you just want to let him know that you remember what you guys talked about. Same thing with your interviewer. When you're sending your thank you emails, don't just send. I usually would, the first paragraph is generic, the last paragraph is generic, but the middle, when I'm in paragraph, the middle sentence is something specific about your interviewer. It was nice to know about your interest in global health, as this is something I am, interested in, and hopefully, we get to do stuff like that. So you want to take notes because you're going to forget. I promise you, virtual interviews are the worst. They're boring, they're annoying. So you need to take notes and you need to keep yourself alert. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions?
I have a question. How can we how can we answer questions on what's the difference between healthcare system in the United States and where you're coming from?
Okay, so that question is a matter of choice of words. You want to be very careful not to undermine your country. At the same time, you want to boost the ego of the American system. So words like, sorry?
Can I try in 2 minutes?
Okay.
Thank you so much. I've been privileged to work in my country and also do externships here. So I've seen, the similarities and the differences. One of them is in the insurance system. In my country, we are not big with insurance, though it's beginning to grow now. But here, mostly the insurance system, the FQHC, or the private insurance takes over. This insurance system ensures that more people have access to care in the United States, and also we can go as much as possible in doing cutting edge technology, because insurance sometimes, or even more of one-time cover. But in my country, we rely more on clinical skills because most patients may not be able to afford. So it has enabled me to develop my bedside clinical skills, which I believe, coming here, if I transpose it or translate it to the cutting edge technology, I will be able to become more refined as a physician. The second part of the different similarities and differences that I've observed is in the similarity. We have diverse disease spectrum, which is also here that I've seen almost similar, same diabetes, hypertension ravaging the society, drug addiction, poverty, different health disparities and social determinants of health. And in the rural setting here also, we also have that obesity driven by poverty, hypertension, drug non-compliance, drug addiction. So I've had that experience there, and I believe I will continue in that trajectory in managing similar patients here. The last thing that I noticed about the two areas that I've been is in the availability of hospital system. So I worked in a rural setting there, and I was just like one person in a 5,000-mile radius. But here in most rural settings, even though that they have that, but it's not as scarce. Healthcare facilities are not as scarce as they are. So these are the major things that I've seen in the two systems. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a good response. You see the way you are trying as much as possible not to, things like using third world country, instead of using, you can use limited resources, words like limited resources, they understand that. So like you said, remember points, insurance, similarity of illnesses, and stuff like that. And we can also talk about access to technology, because of our limited resources, we didn't have access to, cutting edge technology. We relied mostly on our clinical skills. And even though we were limited by, access to technology, but one thing I learned was to, like you said, bedside manner, bedside clinical skills and all of that. So I think you did a good job on that, and you can pick some points and just mix it for yourself.
Sorry, I kind of got a little confused how he kind of related bedside manners to those insurance thing. I don't know how insurance translates to bedside manner. I didn't quite understand the connection.
Okay, what I said about bedside mannerism is that the insurance system here pays for many of the cutting edge diagnostic modalities that we do, which we don't have over there. So most patients over there pay out of pocket, and because of limited resources, they might not be able to afford those cutting edge technology. So
right, but how does that translate to bedside manners?
So I relied on my clinical skills to make good diagnosis, and my clinical skills covers both my bedside mannerism, my examination skills to the patient.
Okay, I think the point she's making is bedside manners. Bedside manners may not.
Well, he said bedside clinical skills.
Okay.
That was what he said. That was what I thought I heard.
That was bedside manners he was saying. He said initially.
Okay. So because I thought I had bedside clinical skills, you can just say clinical skills. Remove the bedside.
Yeah,
thank you for that observation. Thanks.
Okay, one more question before we go.
Okay, while we're waiting for that one question, I just put down some bullet points, just like a summary of, more of everything I've said. So one, your strengths with the hospital strength. Every time you have an opportunity to do that, please do that. Like this question on, the difference in the healthcare system. I like the way Dr. Eddie fused even his own, the fact that he's been in both worlds, the listener could tell that, okay, he can also, do stuff when he's here. So your strength and the hospital strength, that's one. To be engaging. Every opportunity you have to engage, please engage, laugh, smile, show, show when it's a scenario that you should be upset over, show that emotion, any way you can do it, facial expressions and all that. That's 2. 3, try not to be too lengthy. be straight to the point. Being straight to the point is different from being brief. I think for me, it's more of being straight to the point than being brief, even though they sound a lot seem like the same thing, but you want to hit your points, not be lengthy, but do not in an effort to make your sentences short and be short and then shortchange yourself, because really that's the time you have to sell yourself. Hit key points when you can, and let each word count. That one I stole from Dr. Ebi. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think I have one more thing to add. So, in terms of how Africa, well, I didn't grow up in Nigeria, but Nigeria is different from America. I think one other thing that I heard is, let's say, you know how electricity is not around 24/7. So you can pretty much say you've learned to also work under limited electricity to do certain procedures fast, which has enabled you to work more efficient here. Are you understanding my point? And I think the lady mentioned yesterday, like because of lack of resources, like things like appendix, you just have to palpate the McBunny. So you've learned to work with so that allowed you, in as much as you did that, that also allowed you here to be able to recognize certain diseases, pathologists fast, and be able to, you know what I mean, be able to diagnose it, which sets you apart from other candidates.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Zoe. Very nice contributions and very helpful. Thank you, everybody. Dr. Tobe has summarized everything, facial expression, and all of that. Let's not bug ourselves by repeating stuff. Dr. Bello, your camera has been on. Nice. I should have shot a question at you since. Okay, let's just do, please, 30 seconds, okay? Because I can see him and I can attack him. So
yeah, Dr. Bello is actually in Canada.
30 seconds, Dr. Bello.
For what?
Tell me about your hobbies.
My hobbies.
Where are you? You have gone away.
No, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah. My hobbies, two major hobbies I try to engage in is here I try to engage in sports with the local team here in Canada where I live. So I play soccer every other weekend here. And over the years, I've taught myself how to play the keyboard, so once in a while when I'm a little bit stressed, I'm just confused, I just channel that negative energies into my fingers and listen to some notes, just to relieve stress. So that's two major hobbies I think I have. And also I like to have some quiet time just for, self-introspection, just walk to the park and relax. Dr. Ebi, you're laughing.
You don't have hobby now. Go and look for hobby for this question. Yeah. Go and look for hobby. This is your question. Like, you're not so hobbies, you're not supposed to think at all. It's just supposed to come out. He said, since I got to Canada, they play soccer everywhere in the world. Why is that when you now got there that you started playing the ball? So you can just be straight up, I really enjoy playing soccer a lot. I play I play as a midfielder, and for me that's a very strategic point in soccer, because I block. I don't know what midfielders do anyway, but I block all the shots that come
I'm actually a defender, not a midfielder.
Oh, exactly. So as a defender, I block all the shots that come in. For me, that's interesting because I get to just prevent the other team from winning.
Yes, I'm a B-cell.
It's interesting. Stuff like that. And you mustn't have a lot of hobbies. It can just be two. And I also follow my an English football club called an English football club, Manchester United.
Arsenal, please.
Okay. Not be saying I better. Let me not talk. So
no, leave on. We like them like that. Don't worry.
So you would at least, but I want you to, you know, I'm a
Baba, how do you
defender.
manage the heartache? Arsenal, no mention Arsenal in the exam.
One guy in my program got residency
funny enough,
because
I had an
he's
interview
an
last
Arsenal
year.
fan, and the faculty is an Arsenal fan. So
Funny
you
enough, I
almost
had an
need-
interview last year, and one of the faculties, you know, from Egypt, asked me the question. So, what hobbies do you have? I said soccer, you know, and he said, what team do you support in the English Premiership? And I said Arsenal. You know, I said, you are lucky you didn't mention Manchester or Chelsea.
that kind of thing. You just say we are all one. If you mention Manchester, say we are all one. So stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, thanks.
You just want to make sure that you know a lot about your hobby. You don't have to spend too much time. You know, I am a defender, and for me, that's a very critical. I just stop all the goals, and my team usually wins. You know, stuff like that. You know, they can laugh or something. And then I play the keyboard or the piano every other weekend. I'm still, you know, getting, you know, stuff like that. You can just name two, but don't think about it. You don't think about hobbies. It just blots out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, Dr. Edward, signing out.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, Dr. AB. You left your busy schedule to be here with us. Thank you, Dr. Tobe, for also giving us your time. Thank you, everyone that contributed, Dr. Zoe, Dr. Tom, and Dr. Sylvia that volunteered their time. We'll keep this going on every three days. So we're looking for more volunteers for the next session until the interview session is over, so that everybody could have opportunity to have camera time to speak. It's an opportunity to express yourself, and we're free. There's no mistakes. We're all learning. We'll get to perfection after we match. That's only when we'll say we've perfected it. Thank you so much. We'll send a recording to the group again, and we'll post it on our YouTube page. If you can also visit us on our YouTube page and our social media page, we'll be there. This is the IMG Research Academy signing out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.